Good evening. This presentation we'd like to present today is called International Hierarchy. And what we'd like to present is basically how the world is run today from the secretive governments and the secretive leaders that are behind the, the governments. In other words, who is really in control? As we see this picture here, we know that in the time of our king, he was tempted to be given all these kingdoms, and the great tempter came up there and caught him in a weak moment when he had been fasting and said, "I will give you all these kingdoms if you'll bow down to me." And the Lord obviously withstood that, but the point of it is that Satan has these kingdoms to give. And even down from time, he has always, to a certain degree, been allowed to have these kingdoms, have the leaders, have the different people do his bidding, to do his dirty work, as it were, for the destroying of souls. So, what we'd like to do in this presentation is go through one of our posts that we did on God's love and law. And we did this one. Let's see. This one was done on March 23rd of this year. And again, like I said, it was entitled International Hierarchy. And so we'd like to start that now. We have prayed, by the way, to have the Lord to guide us in this. And so we've done our prayer, and now we're ready to get started. So we'll begin that now. In Luke 4, verses 5 and 6, it says, "And the devil, taking him up into a high mountain, showed unto him all the kingdoms of the world in a moment of time. I will give you the glory of these kingdoms and authority over them," the devil said, "because they are mine to give to anyone I please." Jesus answered, "My kingdom is not of this world. If my kingdom were of this world, then would my servants fight, that I should not be delivered to the Jews. But now is my kingdom not from here." And that's John 18:36. So clearly, right now, today, the world's kingdoms belong to the enemy of our soul, Satan. It has been so ever since the great deceiver tricked our first parents in that beautiful garden. However, soon the tables will turn as the following prophecy will take place. "And he shall plant the tabernacles of his palace between the seas and the glorious holy mountain, yet he shall come to his end, and none shall help him. And at that time Michael shall stand up, the great prince which standeth for the children of thy people. And there shall be a time of trouble, such as never was since there was a nation, even to that same time. And at that time thy people shall be delivered, every one that shall be found written in the book." Daniel 11:45 and 12:1. This, of course, is describing the great king of the north, the current ruler of the Holy Land and the world's affairs. Is going to be defeated as our king stands up and delivers his final army, the 144,000, and then the great multitude, Revelation 7:9. And it shall be an all-out spiritual war. In Ephesians 6, verses 11 and 12, we read, "Put on the full armor of God so that you will be able to stand firm against the schemes of the devil. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against rulers, against powers, against the world forces of this darkness, against the spiritual forces of wickedness in heavenly places." Again, that's Ephesians 6, verse 11 to 12. There is an old adage that says, "Know thy enemy." Let us now look at how the satanic world is set up today. There is a journalist who specializes in the globalist world framework, also known as the New World Order, and his name is Jake Morfonio. He is the YouTube owner of a site called Blackstone Intelligence, and there's a picture of Jake, and he has produced some well-documented, very knowledgeable studies on the international hierarchy. And we have blended his study with our knowledge of the scriptures to make this report. One little thing about Jake is that, as far as we know, he's not a Seventh-day Adventist. He's I believe it's a Baptist or something of that nature, but this man really has been gifted to understand the workings of this satanic empire. In other words, he knows about the Rothschilds, he knows about the banking systems, he knows about all the different players that this current world system is made of. And so it's very much a great thing that we have blended his knowledge with what we know of scriptures to give this report. Okay, let's look. Let's look at our current world and how it's run, its leaders, structures, and purposes. The world that we do not often see, yet it is there, doing all its diabolical deeds. We would like to break it down so that by God's grace, soon this hierarchy will be exposed and brought down by his army, the 144,000. The nature of the hierarchy is the same as its leader, Satan. It has a continual breaking of God's commandments, and it has lust and greed as the motivation. The very top level of this international hierarchy is of the picture you see right before you. This is a picture of the Rothschild family. Now, I don't know the specific names of all the members here, but we can identify what many believe as the kingpin leader of this dynasty, and that is Jacob Rothschild over on your right side, the man there with the head, the neck scarf. That is the man based out of Great Britain, and this is his family, and they have been around since the late 1700s. And I'm sure many of you were well aware of the name Rothschild. And the family history started in banking, and it became so good at this profession that soon it became a world dominant banking system. And it's the same today. So we're looking at the Rothschilds here, and they are the very top echelon of this international hierarchy. This is the brains and rulers of the hierarchy. Their purpose is for world domination, centralized power, and control via money, politics, and armament. Yet we know from Scripture that their plan shall fail. The collapse comes when the Middle East war happens and Israel is utterly devastated. And subsequently, Daniel 11:45 and 12:1 takes place. Remember, Israel today is controlled by the Rothschild Zionist government. All right, the second level is the level that does the policy implementation. It's called the Round Table Councils. And if you can look on the screen here, you'll see that these are several 6 different councils here that all work as one to implement the first level's policies. In other words, the first level's goals for world domination. We see the Council of Foreign Relations, United Nations, Bilderberg Group, Club of Rome, Royal Institute of International Affairs, and Trilateral Commission. These have all been around for many, many years. This is what's known as the implementation arms of the banking cartel. They actually get the policies into action from the ruling families, formulating the world order directions to the next level down. A supreme important job of the commissions is to filter down to close liaisons top level opinions and slanted truth that the mainstream media publishes all around the world. The top level only the top level own nearly all main media companies today: BBC, CNN, NBC, ABC, CBS, and thus are able to sway public opinion. Many of you may remember two prime examples of fake news brought down from the top level of the international hierarchy and their agenda operations. The story of Iraq killing babies in incubators with the sobbing girl as the witness was a fake story. The media telling the world that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction, so that the United States was needed to invade this rogue nation, and this was all fake. All such media operations have continued to this day. The ninth commandment blatantly violated again and again. Now, the third level, this is what's called the shadow governments. This is also known as the international deep state personnel. It comprises of State Department bureaucrats, corrupt politicians, lobbyists, and of course we have the slide here showing one of the main players in this shadow government, and that's called the military-industrial complex. And that consists of Boeing, Raytheon, Lockheed Martin, Halliburton. These are the complex that is a shadow government. President Trump famously had the slogan "Drain the Swamp" during his presidential campaign. He was referring to this part of the government, the embedded bureaucrats and personnel whose orders are from the commissions. As Jake Morphonios sagely observed, these are permanent employees who are not elected and stay on indefinitely, unabated, to carry out the orders from the levels above. And then we have the fourth level, which is the intelligent groups. And that comprises of the CIA, Central Intelligence Agency, which is our own United States Information Bureau that runs all the central intelligence operations. And then, of course, we have on the right side, we have the Israel Mossad, which is their top intelligence agency. So these two are working in conjunction in this fourth level as intelligent groups. These groups are the dirty deed workers. They are the ones that take over when the political goals are rejected by the host countries. They infiltrate the host country and begin their plans to enforce implementation of the goals set by the top level. Think of Iraq, think of Libya, think of Syria, think of Ukraine, and so on. These are not haphazard uprisings by loose-knitted outfits. No. It was all staged and planned underground. There may be oil, gold, land, strategic advantages that the globalists want, and if the host country does not play ball, these pit bulls, the intelligent groups, are sent out. The current situation in Venezuela is a perfect example. This country is sitting on one of the greatest known world reserves in the world, and we all know that situation has been brewing over there. And what's been going on behind the scenes is these intelligent groups have set up their militias and their mercenaries and their private intelligence organizations to infiltrate and cause the disruption. But after we've taken a look at all this government workings, we're going to now expose how they shall come to their end. This whole satanic system shall very soon come to its end. How do we know that? The word tells us that. Our first word is found in Isaiah 8, verses 9 and 10. Associate yourselves, O ye people, and ye shall be broken in pieces. Give ear, all ye of far countries. Gird yourself, and ye shall be broken in pieces. Gird yourself, and ye shall be broken in pieces. Take counsel together, and it shall come to naught. Speak the word, and it shall not stand, for God is with us. Here today, we as Present Truth believers are saying these same words. Go ahead, get together, do what you want to do. Make your globalist plans. It shall not stand. Our next word of God is found in Zechariah 14, 1-3. Behold, the day of the Lord cometh, and thy spoil shall be divided in the midst of thee. For I will gather all nations against Jerusalem to battle, and the city shall be taken, the houses rifled, and the women ravished. And half of the city shall go forth in captivity, and the residue of the people shall not be cut off from the city. Then shall the Lord go forth and fight against those nations as when he fought in the day of battle. Gather yourselves together. Yes, gather together, O nation not desired, before the decree brings forth, before the day pass as the shaft, before the fierce anger of the Lord comes upon you, before the day of the anger comes upon you. Seek the Lord, all ye meek of the earth, which have wrought his judgment. Seek righteousness, seek meekness. It may be that you shall be hid in the day of the Lord's anger. For Gaza shall be forsaken, Askelon a desolation. They shall drive out Ashdod at noonday, and Ekron shall be rooted up. Woe to the inhabitants of the sea coast, the nation of Cheralites. The word of the Lord is against you, O Canaan, the land of Philistines. I will even destroy thee, that there shall be no inhabitant. Zephaniah 2, 1-5. Now the top level, which is the Rothschilds as we've seen, is very upset right now because their plan to take over Syria was shot down. That was particularly because of Russia. Russia has been given the permission by our king to go in there and put the foot down on Syria. Therefore, this top level government hierarchy is very upset. They went into Syria, set up ISIS as their militia to overturn the country, but Russia stepped in to thwart the globalist plans. Russia is finally onto the globalist plans, and they see their very survival at stake. In Proverbs 21:1, we read, "The king's heart is in the hand of the Lord, like rivers of water. He turns it wherever he wishes." Right now, we have two opposing blocs forming for the final war over Israel. Mainly the United States, England, France, Germany, Australia, Canada, and a majority of the NATO countries, consisting of the Western Bloc. And then the Eastern Bloc consists of Russia, China, Iran, Turkey, Syria, along with some former Soviet Union nation states. This, of course, is all God's working to get the final gigantic war spoken of in the following prophecies to come to pass. And of course, that is the quote that we just read on Zephaniah 14, 1-3. The Lord is about ready to have the great war start. This is one of the reasons why we have to be prepared to know the times of the seasons. Once this last gigantic war happens, then we are told in the last message from the Lord's rod, Micah 6:9, the following: "While the powers of the earth are engulfed in a gigantic war, the wicked in the church shall be cut off, no more to pass through her." That can be found in track 14, page 22. So here we see a final picture of the 144,000 standing with the Lamb on Mount Zion. And this is going to be a beautiful sight. We're going to see this final army of the Lord, which is spoken of in Joel. You can read that in Joel chapter 2, 1-11. And this will be a great time. So we look forward to this time. And We wanted to bring you this report today because this is very important. And if we can know the inner workings of the enemy, we're going to be that much more prepared. So we thank you for joining us, and we hope you've been blessed. And if you'd like to follow us, you can follow us on our two blogs, godsloveandlaw.wordpress, or you can find us at hearyetheRaw.wordpress. So we thank you for listening, and may the Lord be with you.